Let's talk to Taylor in California. California. How are you, Taylor?
Yep.
Hi,
Doing
Taylor.
good. Yourself, Jamie?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Hope. How are you?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there we are. All right.
I don't know if Hope,
some good reception.
It's all good. It's all good. I don't know what the delay between the three of us is either, because that's always a fun thing to work with as well.
I get it.
Yeah, go ahead. What's your what was your question or
so
point or something you want to talk about?
I was going to say kind of the main sticking point, quick synopsis of it would just be kind of the stigma and or professionalism, more specifically with teachers in sex work.
Yeah.
And I personally think it's bull crap, and just kind of curious as to what your guys' thoughts would be, and I think it'd just be a good topic to bring up.
Yeah, so you had said teachers specifically, but I think we're talking generally about people who are stigmatized for being sex workers, who exist in other professions and places in society. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I just want to clarify because I think I lost audio for a moment. Hope, do you want to?
Yeah, this is actually an interesting conversation because I originally was going to school to become an orchestra conductor, and I wanted to work in a high school. So I actually retired that idea after I got into my profession due to my own personal feelings about me being in a space educating children and what will be the past. But as far as teachers, obviously it needs to be destigmatized because for those children that they're educating, they're not allowed to be on those platforms to begin with. I know everyone just kind of ignores that "Are you 18 and plus" button, but it's there to protect the content creators. Now, if a child is going on restricted websites and pretending to be an adult, then that is not the issue with the teacher. That's the issue with the parent and the child.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as the like, it's not just a stigmatization of sex workers. It's been a stigmatization of women having any level of sexuality in general for years. One of the stories that I've told a bunch of times is how when I lived, where was I living at the time? I think I was in New York with my grandparents, and I was around 11 or 12. And I remember there was a news, I think I was actually younger. I think I was like 10. But there was this news story going on about a teacher who was being fired from their job because they had been asked by the principal whether or not the underwear they were wearing was thong underwear, which is the way like the squares said it back then. They didn't just call them thongs, they called them thong underwear. And it was, do you wear thong underwear? And she was let go because she was, in fact, wearing thong underwear. And it was this scandal that was going across, and it was like a big national conversation about like, somehow we're allowed to just casually talk on the news about whether or not women in certain professions should be wearing thongs. And I'm only 31. So we're talking like 20, 21 years ago. That was the level of conversation we were having about women and the choices of their wardrobe, and not even the wardrobe as it appears outwardly to everybody else. They're literal and actual underwear in this situation. So it's more than a stigmatization of just, and it's just evolved and it's changed into different things over the years. It's more than just a stigmatization of sex workers. It's the stigmatization of women having, not even always being very sexual people, as Hope mentioned. Hope is herself asexual, but still makes sexual content. It has to do with, I don't want to be the obvious firebrand feminist where I'm like, what this comes down to, my friends, is the patriarchy. And the patriarchy, but in a lot of ways, it is the men decide what masculinity should look like for men. And when we talk about that, we talk about toxic masculinity, how they have this projection of what men should be like, that shouldn't be the rules, that it should be okay to have this variation. But in our society too, the rules for women and what femininity should look like have also been made for by men. And I don't even mean metaphorically. I mean, literally look at laws we have passed and who the sponsors were. Like how you get a room full of men going like, all right, we're here to solve abortion. Can we get a woman in here to get our drink orders? Like that's the only time they invite women in the room for those fucking conversations. And so it's not at all surprising to see that stigmatization. Now you have this situation, as Hope put it perfectly, where the parents, the fear of kids being exposed to something that the parents were responsible from stopping them from seeing. And it's just another example of how we as a society have decided that it's everybody else's fault what a parent fails to do for their kid. Anyway, I feel like that could be a whole 5-hour rant I could go on just about how stupid the history of this country is and how identities have been chosen by some of the least exceptional and interesting people ever have set the rules for other people's identities.
That's also such an inappropriate thing for a principal to ask a teacher.
I know. And
it's so awkward. How would you even bring that up?
When I was with my grandparents, they would watch more like CNN, MSNBC, because my grandpa was a Democrat. And I remember on that side of it, I was getting kind of confused because I was a little judgmental Mormon. I was like, why are these news people saying that's wrong? She should have been fired. And then I went back home to my parents after a month or two because I was often sort of shipped away for periods of time. Anyway, I'd go back and they're watching Fox News and it was the opposite on Fox News. They were like, yeah, this hero principal, I'm sure it was Hannity because he's just been around forever and will somehow never die. But this hero principal standing up for the values of blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, you guys are just a bunch of prudish shitbirds. You need to get over yourselves a little bit. Taylor, did we lose you? Are you still there?
No, I'm still here. I'm just kind of
okay.
Keeping an eye on the dogs.
No worries. Anything else you wanted us to address before we jump to the next call?
And I'm kind of curious. Do you guys think there'll be any pushback from those who are misogynistic for how should I say this? How I don't want to say prolific. How more mainstream and or accepted sex workers are becoming. I know we've already got a lot of it happening right now. But do you think they're gonna try and do one final hurrah?
What do you think, Hope?
Honestly, maybe it's because I can't be bothered, but I don't think so. I mean, I feel like we're in a point where sex work has become destigmatized thanks to OnlyFans. I can't believe I'm saying thanks to them right now, but yeah. I feel like a lot of people are set in their ways, and if they're going to get on board with it, then this is the time for them to do so. But the people that have already been against, like who are going to continue to be against it, have been against it for a long time. I feel like you aren't going to get the opposite, really, where you're getting people that support sex work suddenly being against it. So I feel like, if anything, we're moving in a good direction. Maybe I'm just optimistic.
I think you are, but that's okay. I don't think you're naively optimistic, especially because you have it from the inside. So you have an insight I don't have. But I think that it's rolled into other conflicts that are already like... So when I see the polarization right now in the United States over not sex work, but this general political polarization, I haven't figured out in my brain how it gets resolved. When you look at like the MAGA crowd versus kind of everybody else right now, and the way it is escalating and escalating and escalating, the way we've now had what you could call violent conflicts, an insurrection this year, I don't see how, with it only seeming to keep escalating on both sides, but by far worse on one, how that ends without some significant pushback and conflict, potentially violent conflict, which I hope doesn't happen. But it seems like if you look back at history, the level of polarization and hatred we have for the other side in our own country now, you see that happening in a lot of countries right before some kind of civil war. And I'm not saying we're on the cusp of one. I'm saying I don't know I don't know how long it would be until one, if we do have one. I don't see how we don't get out without some significant conflict. And the MAGA crowd, that right wing, the people you're seeing right now being very anti-vax, anti-science, anti, just teaching actual history as it happened instead of the version that makes the white people always look like the heroes. Anti just a lot of stuff. I think sex work is rolled into the things they hate. I don't think there was a lot of people wearing MAGA hats on OnlyFans, though I'm sure there were a few. But I don't think there was a lot. And so I would more say that as far as a pushback and a big conflict from the misogynists and the bigots, misogynists and bigots are finding communities and homes within those kinds of groups. And I think it will be rolled into that larger conflict, which again doesn't appear to have any type of resolution coming that seems plausible to me could be an entirely peaceful one. Barring some big event like Russia nukes us and that's why we all stop treating each other like dicks all the time. I don't know.
I also think that I'm in a pretty privileged position as a sex worker because I'm like cis, I'm white, I am financially stable, I don't have children. There's a lot of things going for me and where I'm able to be in a position where I can have the spoons to argue with people that don't necessarily have the same views that I do. And I don't get a lot of pushback for it personally. So, I'm probably looking at it through a lens where I'm, even when people do disagree with me, they're pretty nice to me. So,
yeah. Until the
as
comments,
opposed to them being hostile to other types of communities.
Yeah, we'll be moderating the comments under this video because unfortunately the dicks do exist, and I'll send you some screenshots if you want to see some. I was getting horrible comments under the video I made last week where I just basically covered and said, "This is bullshit." And it's the kind of people that if it was an actual one-on-one, couldn't do much about it. Taylor, thank you so much.
Reading those. Thank you, Taylor.
What's that? Hi, Taylor.
Oh, I said I always love reading those because I feel like it. Thank you, Taylor.
Hi. Oh my goodness, what just happened?
Oh no. Okay.
We're back. It's all good.
I always like having a very updated view on what people are thinking because obviously, like what I hear is going to be pretty skewed from what's the norm. So that's why I also, when people ask me like, "What do you do for a living?" If I'm out at the grocery store or something, I'm like, "I'm a sex worker," and they're like, "What?" Like a lot of people don't expect you to just like come out and say it, but I think when they realize that it's just like a totally normal thing, that it'll get better.
Online's, I think, a bit of a different monster because very few people actually say what they think online. They say the most unnuanced and uncharitable version of their argument, especially in response to others. So, for example, I've had people literally attack me with my own points before online because they've decided they don't like me and therefore they don't like my position. So they don't actually listen to the argument. They listen for some keywords and then will basically like put my position as you're a fucking idiot because what's really true is blah 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 blah, and then you're like, that's kind of what I said, but the internet sucks, but I love it too. It's like any tool where it's like it can be for good and it can be for horrible, and because more people are horrible than good, it's more often horrible.